First up, we're going to replace this shipping cap with a breather cap that comes with your pump. Just like that. Next, we're going to install our feed tee. It comes with PTFE tape already applied. We're just going to add a bit of anti-seize and then thread that into the port on the middle of the pump head. Let's get this as tight as we can. Okay. And then loosen this tri-clamp to straighten it back out, just like that. Up next, we'll be installing a pressure relief valve. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this MPT fitting on the one side. It's got PTFE tape already applied. We're just going to add another bit of anti-seize. We're going to thread that into the upper right port on your pump head. Get it hand tight. And we'll be using an 11/16 wrench to finish it off. From there, we're going to take our pressure relief valve assembly, press it in, fasten the nut, and finish tightening it with your 11/16 wrench. You want to do the same to the other end as well. From here, we're going to take a stretch of our 3/8 braided hose. We're going to make one connection in our pressure relief valve. The other end is going to connect into our bypass valve. Get the fittings hand tight on each end. And then we're going to have to finish it off with 1 1/4 turn using the 11/16 wrench to set the ferrules. If you're not familiar with how that works, these compression fittings come with a instruction sheet in each of those assemblies, so please take a look at that. From here, we're going to take a section of 3/8 tubing into the other end of our bypass valve. And from there, let's take our pressure gauge and make a connection there. Make sure you tighten these fittings as well. Next, we're going to be connecting our CFO42 cell to our pressure gauge. I'm not going to go over how to assemble the cell in this video, but you can find resources for that on our YouTube page or our website. We should also have a link tagged below this video. What we're going to do is we're going to take our second stretch of 3/8 hose. We're going to connect one end to our pressure gauge and the other end into the inlet of our cell. Make sure we tighten both of those fittings. From there, we've got some extra 3/8 tube segments. We're going to connect the other end of our cell, the outlet, to one of those tube segments, just like that. Moving on to our concentrate control valve. It comes standard with a MPT fitting on the end, on the inlet. We're going to need to replace that with the spare nut and ferrule set that comes in your kit. Best way to make sure we get this correct is I like to take the tube segment. I'll be putting my nut on first, and then we'll be placing the smaller ferrule with the flat end on next, flat end facing down, and then we'll take our tapered ferrule with the larger diameter side facing down as well, just like that. From there we can place that onto our concentrate control valve assembly and thread that on. Make sure you finish it off with the wrench as well. Alright, next up we're making the connection from our concentrate control valve to our heat exchanger. I'm going to use about 1 foot of polypropylene tubing. I'm going to connect that into this polypropylene fitting, just twist it to tighten it down. The other end we're going to connect into a 1/2 inch to 3/8 reducing union on the heat exchanger. Just make sure you tighten those ferrules down. Next up, we're going to be connecting our flow meter. These come with polypropylene fittings, so make sure we apply some PTFE tape to the plastic fittings. And we're just going to go hand tight on these, no need to use a wrench. Just like that. connect, we're going to use some more polypropylene tubing. We're going to put one end into the sample outlet of our heat exchanger. The other end, we're going to round into here and connect to the lower fitting on your flow meter, that is the inlet. There we go, you just tighten that down as well. One thing to note is you're going to want your flow meter oriented vertically, or else it's not going to give you an accurate reading on the face. Okay. Up next, we'll be mounting our tank on our feed tee here. Let's start by removing the tri-clamp fitting that's there. We're going to leave our O-ring in place and gently set our tank on top of that. All right, make sure everything's aligned. We'll support it with one hand and we'll place the tri-clamp back around it. There you go. Just swing that around and tighten it down. Just like that. Okay. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to connect our pressure relief valve, our bypass valve, and our flow meter back to our tank. So I'll start with about a foot of polypropylene tubing. We're going to use that to connect from our pressure relief valve. So we'll tighten that fitting down. Other end into the tank. We're going to use an 11/16 wrench to set the ferrule in there as well. Next, let's use about a 3-foot section of polypropylene tubing. We're going to connect to our bypass valve. So we tighten that fitting. We're going to wrap that back to the tank. Just like that. And finally, another foot of polypropylene tubing to make that last connection. Okay. From here, all that's left to do is we're going to need to connect our chiller to our heat exchanger. It's got the coolant inlet and outlet clearly labeled, so just hook up your chiller appropriately. Next, let's go over Vfd and power requirements. Okay, so final step is going to be making the connections from our power supply to our VFD and our VFD to our motor here. All the wires needed to connect your VFD to your motor are encased in this box here. Make sure we take note of the power requirements printed on the side of our VFD. This one is rated for 120 volts. We'd like to recommend that you have an electrician take care of this. They can refer to the wiring diagram printed directly on the motor casing here when connecting your VFD. All right, thank you.